Hello and welcome. It's good to be with you again for worship for the Rosendale Methodist Circuit, and this week we've got a harvest theme, and we're going to begin with some words from Psalm 24. The earth is the Lord's and all that is in it, and those who live in it, for he has founded it on the seas and established it on the rivers. Now, to begin, I want to just ask you to pause for a moment and take a look around where you are. Look out of the window. What do you see? Rejoice. Rejoice in the wonder of God's creation. We live in a beautiful part of the country in Rosendale, and with the hills and the valleys and the rivers, the trees, especially this time of year when everything is changing colour. Check out those colours and listen to the sounds as well if you can. Feel those textures and smell those wonderful smells. The crisp autumn smell that comes at this time of year. Crunch through the fallen leaves, that's always good fun. And feel the smoothness of those wonderful conkers that we used to be allowed to play with when we were children. And just breathe in that wonderful fresh autumn air. God has surrounded us with beauty. God is a creative and a caring God who provides for all our needs. Jehovah Jireh, the one who provides. And just take a moment, as you pause, just take a moment and say thank you. Thank you to God for loving you and taking care of you. Now, festivals are times for celebration, for Thanksgiving, and harvest is one of my favourites. The middle of October is perhaps maybe a little late to be celebrating the harvest of farm and field, but there are many other types of harvest which happen throughout the year, and more of that in a few minutes. But let's just concentrate for a minute on the traditional harvest. As many of you know, I'm the son of a farmer. He was a hill and dairy farmer, my dad, and my mum's side as well, all hill farmers. So I was brought up amongst cows and sheep and pigs as well, and hens and all the rest of it. And every year we had the annual harvest of grass, hay time, or as it later became known as silage time. And that getting in of the hay and the silage was vital, both to the lives of our animals for their winter feed, and of course for the economic survival of the farm. Now when you're a small boy playing in the hay, making dens and pretending that you're building forts and all kinds of brilliant things like that, and none of that economic side of things really sort of enters your head. But as you get old enough to help, reality dawns. Bringing in the harvest is hard work, and it makes for some long hours, starting work before the sun comes up and going to bed after the sun has gone down. And we must remember that the harvest is the climax of the work of a whole year, which begins often with ploughing, and then the sowing of seed, followed by the nurturing of the crops, and finally it's time to reap what you have sown, weather permitting of course. And when the last bale of hay was lifted off the trailer and put on the elevator, and it went up that elevator into the barn, what a wonderful feeling that was, that the last trailer load of silage was finally brought home. It was time to relax and time to give thanks to God for his provision. And we always look forward to the annual harvest celebration with a supper and a sail. The farmers and their families sang their hearts out in praise of all that God had done. And tables groaned under the weight of the homemade cakes, the pies and the meringues that, as a small child, seemed to be as big as my head, and on which I sometimes made myself quite ill. And after the supper, the young farmers would do their best to outbid one another in the sale for the fruit and vegetables which had been on display at the front of the church. And money was raised for various charities, and everyone went home happy and content. It was good to gather in the presence of God to celebrate yet another harvest festival. And so we've got two songs for you. Come, you thankful people, come, raise the song of harvest home, and also a little bit more up to date maybe, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, which takes its inspiration from Psalm 24. There are two versions of the earth is the Lord's. The first one has the lyrics on the screen, and the second one has no lyrics on the screen, but I like the version. So there you go. enjoy celebrating God's harvest as you sing along with those two songs.